background of indigenous leadership. Indigenous leaders hold a relevant position within their communities, valued for their deep understanding of indigenous language, tradition, histories, and sacred practice. They draw wisdom from past experience to address current challenges while shaping a vision for their people's future. True leadership in indigenous culture is rooted in solidarity, engagement, and collective decision making, ensuring that the voice of all community members are heard. The qualities that define effective indigenous leader closely align with the traits found in strong managers. Historically, governance within indigenous society relies on council, chief, and elder who work collaboratively to maintain harmony and justice. However, colonial intervention disturbed this traditional structure by imposing Western governance model that often clashed with indigenous custom. Today, indigenous nations are actively reclaiming and evolving their leadership approaches to reinforce sovereignty and self-determination. Indigenous leadership continues to play a vital role in advocating for rights, safeguarding cultural heritage, and promoting sustainable development.
The mechanism of indigenous leadership. First one is consensus-based leadership. So, indigenous communities often make decisions through collective dialogue rather than voting or top-down control. Leaders act as facilitators who ensure all voices are heard. This system encourages unity, patience, and decisions that reflect shared values rather than individual or political interest. Second one is elder wisdom and lineage. Leadership is frequently rooted in age, experience, and moral integrity. While some roles follow lineage or clan traditions, respect must still be earned through service and wisdom. Elders carry cultural memory and ensure continuity of values and knowledge across generations. The third one is the spiritual connection. Leadership is deeply spiritual, often involving ceremonial duties and a strong connection to nature and ancestral beliefs. Leaders are expected to maintain harmony between people, the land, and the spiritual world, grounding decisions in moral and ecological responsibility. The last one is community-centered responsibility. So, indigenous leaders serve the collective, not themselves. Their role is to protect the people's well-being, culture, and environment. Leadership is seen as a duty to both present and future generations, emphasizing humility, accountability, and care. Moving on to the next one is the impacts on modern society. So, the first one is participatory democracy. So, indigenous governments has inspired inclusive decision-making models in modern systems. Concepts like talking circles and community councils promote respect, shared responsibility, and dialogue-driven leadership beyond conventional voting. And the second one is decolonization and cultural pluralism. The indigenous leadership challenges Western-centric models and promotes diverse, culturally rooted ways of governing. It contributes to decolonization movements that seek to restore indigenous autonomy and integrate traditional governance to modern legal frameworks.
If we analyze this using international relation theory, indigenous leadership in value and principle is very different from realist. In realist, value, morality, and norms are often put aside in favor of the state and survival of the state. While in the indigenous leadership, balance, harmony, and shared prosperity are priorities. However, indigenous leadership can use the concept of realist as a tool to analyze defense and negotiation strategies. Indigenous leadership can adopt a realist tactic approach, not to ideology one. The combination of indigenous value and realist strategy approach can create effective resistance to state or market domination. Indigenous leadership is more compatible with liberalism than with realism, especially in terms of corporate. Indigenous leadership is consensus and deliberation, and liberalism is cooperation between state and NGO. Coordination of non-state actors, human rights advocacy, and protective of vulnerable groups, the importance of international norms and institutions.
So in here I'm gonna give the example of indigenous people. Indigenous people around the world continue to influence modern governance through their cultural values, leadership traditions, and legal recognitions. Examples include the Dayak of Kalimantan, Indonesia, whose customary forest management practice are now partly recognized in national law. The Sami across Norway, Sweden, and Finland, represented in national Sami parliament that shape education and environmental policy. And Canada First Nation and Inuit, whose rights are protected under frameworks like the Nuvanu Territory, granting them significant autonomy. In Australia, Aboriginal communities' connection to land is acknowledged through the Native Title Act. Countries like Bolivia and converted under Evo Morales. Bolivia adopted a plurinational state model that formally incorporated indigenous language, custom, and self-governance into its constitution. Even in Indonesia, Papua Dewan Adat, Council of Indigenous Leaders, play a vital role in shaping regional governance under the province special autonomy status. This case demonstrates how indigenous leadership is increasingly valued in modern states, not only for preserving cultural identity but also for promoting inclusive, sustainable governance rooted in local wisdom.
Last but not least, the conclusion is indigenous leadership is more than just a cultural inheritance. It's a living, breathing system rooted in collective wisdom, moral integrity, and harmony with nature. Unlike many dominant leadership models that focus on control and authority, indigenous leadership centers on dialogue, elder guidance, and spiritual responsibility. It shows us a leadership style that puts people and earth first. Today, indigenous leaders are influencing both national and global governance. From the Dayak communities in Indonesia to the Maori in New Zealand, their tradition continue to shape policies, protect environments, and uphold justice. It proves that traditional leadership isn't outdated, it's deeply relevant and powerfully impactful. In the context of international relations, indigenous leadership reflects liberal values like cooperation, human rights, and the recognition of non-state actors. Yet, at the same time, it uses realist strategies to defend autonomy and resist domination. This balance offers us a powerful model for building societies that are not only just but also inclusive and resilient. Indigenous leadership doesn't just preserve the past, it offers path forward for the future.